Namaste. Today we will continue our lecture on various session tracking methods in Servlet technology. Till now we have seen two methods, cookies and hidden form field. Today we will see one more important technique, which is URL rewriting. Right? The name suggests that we are rewriting the URL. Right? Let's see what does it mean. In URL rewriting, we append a token or an identifier to the URL of the next servlet or the next resource. This means that whenever we are redirecting from one page to another page, means one servlet to another servlet, we will rewrite our URL, means we are appending our URL with a token or identifier. We can send parameter name value pairs using the following format. With the URL, we can send the name and value of the variable as shown below. The syntax we can see the URL, then question mark, then name of the variable equal to value. Second variable we can end using the end sign, then second name and equal to second value, and so on. Right? This is the syntax for URL rewriting. We will also see one example in NetBeans for this URL rewriting. We will implement this example same as previous examples. Let's see the example. For this example implementing session URL rewriting, I have created 3 files in web application, right? One is HTML file and 2 are class file, and these are the servlets, right? Let's see these 3 files. Let me open these 3 files. Those are available in session package, right? The 2 class files are session url.java and session url2.java, and the HTML file is available in web pages whose name is surl.html. Here you can see the 3 of files, right? surl.html, surl2.java and surl.java, right? This file will see in this example. I will run the surl.html, right? Before that, see the flow, right? Flow will be, right, we will consider this flow for execution, right? We will implement according to that. First I will execute surl.html, right? Then the flow will go into the session url.java, right? I will write this action into the form action tag. So the flow will be entered into the session url.java, that is our first servlet, right? Then from this class the flow will be go into session url2.java, right? So this is the flow, right? HTML to first servlet and the first servlet to second servlet, right? Let's execute this flow. So this is the first HTML file. You can see the different tags available here. These are the common tags which are used in HTML tag. In this I have used one form, right? Action, you can see the surl. This action will go into the session url.java, and the method you can see the post. I have taken one input tag, right, that which is the text, and the button whose name is submit. So the on the output screen you can see one text box and one button, right? Let's run this output and we will see the output of this form. You can see the output, one text box and one button, right? Now this URL, right, surl action will go into the session url.java, right? And the session url java is a servlet. For this flow, let's check the web.xml file. Let's see how this URL is going into the session url.java. Here you can see, right, the our action is surl. Let's find this action surl, right? Here you can find the surl action which is going in servlet name surl. Now we will find this servlet from this web.xml, right? As URL will go session URL, right? Then session URL, servlet is here. And class for that is session package and session URL class. We will open this class from session package, right? Session package and session URL. Let me open this class again. I have already opened, but I will find from the session, right? That is session URL.java, right? So this is the class in which this URL is going. You can see this servlet, right? This is same as previous example, right? The first line is class extends HTTP servlet and the method do post, right? The class name is session URL, right? That extends the HTTP servlet for creating servlet. The method I have used the do post, right? Because in the form I am using the post method. That's why the flow of this action will be entered into the do post method, right? Here for example I have not added the service method. We can run this code by do post method, right? Print writer for writing the response, right? Then I will set the response type HTML because my response will be in HTML form in browser. Then I am getting the data of user text box. I will store into the name variable. Then I am printing that name variable, right? And then, right, I have created one anchor tag and my action, my flow will go into the SURL2, right? You can see the anchor tag and href I have written the SURL2 action, right? And the SURL2 action will be go into the session URL2. And here I am passing the name, right? Uname equal to variable name, right? This is the URL rewriting. I am passing the data with the URL. You can see this, right? And find the entry in the web.xml. Let's see the SURL2. Here we can find the SURL2 which is going in session URL2, right? We have found the session URL2 servlet, right? Now we will find the class. We will find the name of session URL2. Here we found the session URL2 servlet and the class for that is session package and the Java file is session URL2. Let's open this file. So this is the class in which the SURL action will come, right? This is also a servlet. You can see extend HTTP servlet. So this class will also become the servlet. Here also I have method, only one method added, that is toGet, because when passing the data, I have not mentioned the method. First line is for writing the object, right? I have created the out object, right? Then I have set the response type as HTML. Then I have created one variable for getting the parameter which is come with the request which I have sent here. You can see the uname equal to name which is sent with the request, right? With the URL rewriting. I am fetching that data, right, and storing it in a name, right? The data will be stored into a name. Then finally I am printing this data, right? So this was the flow from one HTML to second servlet, right, and the servlet to third class. So let's see the output. This was the HTML file, right? Here I am adding the data and then I will press on the go. For example, I am entering the name Riya, then I am clicking go, right? Then you can see the flow will be to SURL and this SURL go into the first servlet. Then I am clicking here, right, and the flow will go into the second servlet through SURL and you can see the data is passed with the URL. This is what the URL rewriting, right? So this was the example for URL rewriting for session tracking, right? So we have seen the flow which is HTML to first servlet, right, and first servlet to second servlet, right? So we can see the how the data is maintained through first file to last file, right? So this is the example of session tracking using URL rewriting. Right? These are the 3 files. From this file, right, my flow will go into the first servlet using this URL, right. This is the first servlet session URL, right. From the session URL, you can see the second URL we are finding here. From this, my flow will go into the session URL too, right. You can see the how uname is maintained through 3 of this file, right. Okay. In this example, we have seen that how URL rewriting works, right? How we can rewrite the URL and navigate from one servlet to another servlet, and we can pass the data using URL also. Now, we will continue our next lecture on the another technique of session tracking, which is HTTP session technique, right. We will also see one example for that. Thank you.